Here we back. Here we back. Now today, man, we're going to be talking about African leaders with foreign wives, right? Particularly white European wives, but foreign wives in general, right? Now today's video is kind of going to be a follow-up video to the one I dropped yesterday in regards to the infamous debt of independence that Haiti had to pay to France. And in that video, we spoke about Jean-Pierre Boyer, the biracial son of a white Frenchman who had agreed to pay reparations to France. Now, in today's video, I'm going to talk about why this strategy does not work for black men, right? As we know throughout history, men have married or intermixed with foreign women of different populations to expand their influence and solidify their control. We've seen this strategy employed by the Arabs in North Africa. We've seen this strategy employed by the Europeans on the West African coast, as well as the European colonies, where they would strategically mix with the foreign population and their offspring would blend in with that population, gain power, and oftentimes suppress the mother's side of the family for the benefit of the father's lineage. But when it comes to black men, I raise the argument that this strategy does not work for us. It cannot work for us in the same way. And in fact, I'll go on to say that it actually does more harm than good and can actually be weaponized against us more times than it can benefit us. Because first things first, unlike other groups, the children of black men and foreign women, you cannot blend into these different societies and try to take power in the same way, right? Because you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, right? Everybody's going to be able to see that you are an outsider just by your physical appearance. For example, when we talk about the Arab expansion in North Africa, right? We talk about, the trade and the military conquest. But one of the most powerful strategies that the Arabs employed was by intermixing into the local populations, right? And from there, they were able to create these hybrid offspring that carried on the father's culture, the religion, and the politics. These hybrid offspring would go on to promote Arab identity, Islamic culture, often, having a hostile position towards the native black Africans, right? And expanding Arab influence throughout the region. Now, the reason black men cannot do this is because we have dominant genes, brothers. We have dominant genes. You see, the recessive genes of the Arab allows their offspring to integrate seamlessly into the local population. But if black men try to deploy this strategy in the Middle East, for example, our offspring would struggle to blend in with the native Arab population in the same way, right? Our offspring would stick out. Our offspring would not be able to usurp power in the same way, not as easily. One good example of this is Tipu Tip. I'm sure some of y'all have heard of the name Tipu Tip, very prominent slave trader and human trafficker from East Africa. Take a look up on the screen. Based on descriptions of his age at different points in his life, it is believed that Tipu Tip was born around 1832 in Zanzibar. Tipu Tip's mother, Bint Habib bin Bushir, was a Muscat Arab of the ruling class. His father and paternal grandfather were coastal Arabs of the Swahili coast, who had taken part in earlier slave trading expeditions to the interior. His paternal great-grandmother, wife of Raja bin Mohammed bin Said el Mugebi, was the daughter of Juma bin Mohammed el Nebani, a member of a respected Muscat family, and a Bantu woman from Dar es Salaam, basically Tanzania. Now, despite having significant Arab ancestry due to the dominance of the African genes, Tipu Tip, walking down the street, he probably looks like a regular black man from Philadelphia. And that speaks to a key difference on how other groups of men, their offspring, are able to blend into our populations, into local populations, and usurp power. While black men, we can't really do the same when it comes to intermixing with foreign groups. Now, when you examine his lineage, I believe his mother was a Arab from an elite family, right? His father was an Arab slave trader. His paternal grandfather also was an Arab slave trader. And I believe that his paternal great-grandmother was a woman of mixed heritage with an Arab father and a black mother. But as you can see, throughout the life of Tipu Tip, he was an agent of the Arabs, right? He carried out the political, economic, and social interests of his Arab lineage, right? Despite the fact that he came from mixed heritage, he operated in the interests of the Arabs, capturing and selling black Africans into slavery and remaining loyal to his Arab culture and heritage. Now, imagine the reverse, right? If a black man were to marry into an Arab family, right, their children would not blend in with the native population as easily, right? Their blackness would make them stand out immediately. Like they'd stick out like a sore thumb. So it would be harder for us to really rise through the ranks of power and blend in politically, socially, economically. this strategy of intermixing to gain power, it does not work for us, man. It does not work for us, man. That's mainly due to the dominant genes, man. We're going to stick out as soon as you walk in the room. Your offspring don't got the physical appearance to, mix and mingle and move behind the shadows. Now, besides the Arabs, who have extensively used this strategy to conquer North Africa in the past, the Europeans during the colonial period, especially the Spaniards and the Portuguese, a little bit of the French, the English, not so much, right? Not so much. The English and the French weren't really too big on the race mixing like that. It was really the Spanish and the Portuguese that was really going crazy, having a ball. You know what I mean? There was the Spanish and the Portuguese, man. Goddamn. So they definitely employed this strategy to their benefit. The Spanish and the Portuguese, for sure. That's why when you look at countries like Brazil, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Peru, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, it's a lot of mixed heritage in those nations, right? It was a lot of mixing and mingling and dipping and dabbing going on back then, right? Now, when you examine the caste systems and the power structures created by the Europeans in the colonial period, you saw that even though a lot of these offspring were mixed, European indigenous, European African, right? They were raised to carry out the interests of the European fathers, maintaining the colonial power structure, right? And this strategy, as we can see in the present day, it left behind a legacy that we can still see today. Many of these cultures, a lot of these cultures have a strong stench of anti-blackness, despite them having significant, black heritage and black admixture. The European ancestors passed down a spirit of contempt and sometimes hatred for the black side of the family, where people were often ashamed of their black ancestry and tried to distance themselves from it as much as possible, right? Another reason I think this strategy does not work for black men is because black men typically do not pass down the same spirit of hatred and contempt for the mother side of the family. Like, I notice if a black man is going to marry, a woman of another culture, a woman of another race, he's not going to pass down, contempt and hatred and negative feelings towards his child. Whereas throughout history, the Arabs and the Europeans, they would have no problem intermixing with the foreign population and then passing down hatred and contempt and brainwashing and indoctrinating their child to go against the mother side of the family. I notice black men don't really operate like that, right? Black men are more civilized in that manner. Black men really, call it what you want. It might be a weakness on our part, but black men are more civilized in that manner, right? If a black man is going to get with a woman, he's not going to pass down hatred down to his child and his offspring. He's not going to tell his child to hate the mother side of the family. Whereas the Arabs and the Europeans, they would tell their child to, go and wage war against your mother side of the family. They've done that many times in the past, going back thousands of years. In fact, I just did a video last night where I spoke about Jean-Pierre Boyer, the leader who agreed to pay reparations to France after the Haitian Revolution. And I told you, how was he introduced in the Haitian Revolution? He had arrived in 1802 with the French army to put the blacks back into slavery, right? Even though he was half black himself on his mother's side of the family, he came to the colony to put his mother's people back on the plantation, back on the sugarcane plantation, back into slavery, right? Because obviously the indoctrination he got from his white father inspired him to do that. And I think that's the difference with black men. I just don't see a black man getting with a woman, procreating with a woman, and then weaponizing that offspring and telling that offspring to go enslave your mother's lineage. Like, black men typically, we're more civilized than that. Now, that might be a weakness on our part, like I said, but typically I don't see black men operating in that same manner. And that's why I say this strategy simply does not work for us. Because if you're not going to operate in that same ruthless manner, then it's simply not going to be a benefit for you. It's going to work against you. Actually, it's going to be a liability for you. So all in all, man, I'm not a fan of when I see African leaders with white women or foreign women. It could be any other women that's not black. I'm not really a fan of seeing that. I don't like the image, and I don't like the implications. We need to understand that there is nothing wrong with gatekeeping, right? These other nations, these other cultures, they gatekeep. If you're a black man, you want to marry one of their daughters, you're going to see how fast they gatekeep. You're going to see how well they gatekeep. So there's nothing wrong with gatekeeping your culture. Nothing wrong with gatekeeping your wealth, your power and influence. There's nothing wrong with gatekeeping. We need to start keeping more gates. We need to start putting up more gates. You feel me? And in summary, bro, I just believe that it's important for our leaders, whether our economic leaders or political leaders, to stick with our own women, man, because we've seen time and time again how these strategies have been employed against us, how men from different nations and cultures would intermix with our populations and infiltrate our societies, right? But the truth is that we cannot really do the same in reverse. It doesn't work the same for us in reverse, right? When we try to intermix and integrate, we stick out like a sore thumb. So, and also these communities, they heavily gatekeep their culture. So we're always going to be seen as outsiders no matter what we do. But on the bright side, though, I'm happy to say that when you look at the wealthiest black men across the world, you know, minus the rappers and the ball players, I don't really care about them. Almost all the most powerful black men, they're all with black women, right? So that shows that those men understand the importance of gatekeeping and preserving their power. Shout out to David Stewart. I believe that recently he was named as the wealthiest black man in the United States, right? With the net worth of over $11 billion. Shout out to David Stewart, been married to his woman for almost 20, 30 years, right? So shout out to him, man. You know, black men got to be strategic, man, especially when it comes to the woman that you choose to be with. You got to be strategic. Understand that in order to maintain and grow your power, it's heavily tied to who you decide to align yourself with. And you already know, like I mentioned before, it goes without saying, the woman that you choose got to have the proper mindset as well, right? The mindset that she has is very important. But anyways, back to these African presidents with their white wives, right? When we see these presidents marry these European women, these marriages are somewhat like political alliances, right? Like in traditional alliances between two nations, when you marry a woman from a different country, that's a sign of cooperation between two nations, right? That's how it was historically, right? When two kingdoms come together, like I said before, you know, when they marry off their daughter, when they marry off their folks, that is a sign of unity, collaboration, cooperation. But that's why it's a weakness for black men, especially our leaders, because these marriages allow foreign states, these colonial nations, to infiltrate our politics, right? Not even in the political office, but also inside the bedroom. Because as a man, you're going to consult with your wife about your plans, your aspirations, your decisions, right? So when your wife is from France, you know, that's going to have an influence over how she sees the world, right? Like, for example, take a look up on the screen, Mamadi Doumbouya, right? The president of Guinea. You notice that he was also one of the leaders who took power in a coup d'etat, similar to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. But you notice that he has not taken any revolutionary steps to move his country forward. It's pretty much been the status quo, right? Because he's not going to go against the interests of his wife's folks, because he probably loves his wife. So why would I destroy France? You know, why would I wage war? Why would I wage economic or diplomatic warfare against France when he's married to a French woman? You know, he probably good friends with her father. You know, they probably, be eating dinner together. He's not going to go against France. Not in the same way that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have gone against France. Hell no. That's why in Guinea, ever since he came to power, it's been the status quo. Now, me personally, it's just certain nations, especially in West Africa, as a black man, you have no business dating outside your race, right? If you're from Guinea, like take a look up on the screen, right? If you're from Guinea and you got specimens like this walking around, you got no business running around with a white woman, right? If you're from Senegal, you got no business walking around with a woman from a different race. If you're from Ghana, it's just certain nations, they produce some very high quality black women. Now, I got love for my black women across the world, but I'm just saying it's just certain nations, man. For you to bypass all the women inside the country to go get with a French woman, bro, you are out of pocket. You from Guinea, you got no business there, bro. You out your mind, bro. Now, due to the fact that we're talking about West African leaders in this video, I'm focused on West African women, and I pretty much feel the same way about all West African women, but especially those nations, right? If you're the president of Guinea, you have no reason to date outside your race, brother. You have no reason. The good Lord in heaven has blessed you with some very high quality specimens to choose from. Now, like I said before, the president of Guinea has been a disappointment for me ever since he came to power. But like I said, I'm not surprised, because if you're married to a French woman and you have children who have French heritage, naturally you're going to want to protect the interests of the French, right? Because those interests are also going to affect your children, even though those interests may conflict with the well-being and the progress of your own people. Unfortunately, I don't see black men having the same ruthless mentality and the same barbaric mentality as the Arabs and the Europeans. And the barbaric mentality I'm talking about is having mixed race children and passing down and indoctrinating your children to hate their other side of the family. I just don't see black men operate in that manner. Black men, like I said, we're more civilized in that aspect. We're not going to teach our children to hate their mother. We're not going to do that. Whereas the Arab and the Europeans, they've done that throughout centuries. They would literally indoctrinate their children to hate their mother. And unfortunately, the reality of the matter is black men simply do not operate in the same way, right? Black men are more civilized than that. But that's why I said it's a weakness for us and it can be weaponized against us. So like I said, man. Anyways, it's your boy Neferkari Salim, back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. I should not have to tell y'all. Support the channel. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine.
I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drop a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. None of your team be full of them traitors, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Making the news, making the news, breaking the rules, yeah, know that we making the news, yeah.